You don't know when your number will be called. In order to know my sister, you have to take a journey back to a woman named Ruth Gilmore and Philip Whitehead were slaves in a place in Louisiana. They gave birth to a son named Titus Whitehead, born 1 year after the Emancipation Proclamation. Amen. Titus Whitehead was our grandfather. He lived in a place called, it was from Vandalia, Louisiana. There was another man that is important in our family. His name is Prince Albert Brooke. He was a slave. He and his wife gave birth to a woman named Daphne. She married Titus. She's from a place called Lake Providence, Louisiana. They moved from there to Mississippi. And we think that we're from Mississippi. We are, but our heritage is Louisiana. Titus and Daphne united in matrimony, and they had a daughter. That daughter's name was Rosemarie, my mother. It is something interesting about my grandparents. Titus was a farmer. He worked hard, a deacon in the church. He could not read, but he could quote the Bible. He built the church in their town in Greenville, Mississippi. My grandmother, Daphne Whitehead, she was a woman that everyone came to because she had the gift of healing in her hands. When a person got sick, they went to Mother Whitehead. When they could not afford a doctor, they went to Mother Whitehead. Even the whites in that town would bring their children and their cattle for Mother Whitehead to fix them. She would say she would go into the woods and ask God, what should I pick? And what should I chop up? And she said she wouldn't come out until God would give her an answer. My uncle, the former pastor of this church, had meningitis. And when people were dying, my grandmother healed her child of meningitis. You need to know about my sister Rosemarie because she comes from a strong heritage. It is true that the great migration of people of color from the South coming to the North. Well, our family, the Whitehead family, has their own great migration story. Her uncle, Percy Whitehead, was the first to travel to Chicago. He went back again and again until he got all of his sisters and brothers and his mother and his father from Mississippi to Chicago. But there was one woman who was still in the South, living on a plantation. And in the South, she could not leave because they would often tell the story when they would go to the owner of this plantation. They called it sharecropping, but it was slavery. She went to ask if she could get a pass to go see her dad. And he said in his white southern dialect, I ain't running no charity in this place for you people. So the story goes that my Aunt Hattie, my Uncle Percy, my Aunt Doll, and my Aunt Gold went to her in a truck And my mother had to leave her shoes, her clothes, her furniture. She had my oldest sister on her hip, Cole. And she had my brother, who was a newborn, Arthur. And she told them, I'm not going anywhere. Every time she went down the road, people would say, where are you going, Rose? She said, I'm just going to see my family off. She got to the gate. They put her in the truck. And I'm not talking about generations ago. I'm talking about my mother escaped the plantation. And that's how we got to Chicago. My family knew what it is to reach back. Uncle Percy reached back. Uncle John reached back. So many reached back. But then when you look at my sister Rosemarie was starting her family with her husband, Herbert. And my sister Marcia had some troubles in her life. Rosemarie was a young wife, mother. And when my mother did not want her grandbaby to be in the system, Rosemarie reached back and she took my niece, 6 months old approximately, and raised her, Rosemarie, as her own. She reached back. 30 years ago, when I started Praise Temple, my sister was going through some turbulent times. We were angry and we were at a place where we didn't know what to do. When she found out I was starting a ministry, she didn't have herself together. But she had the tenacity to reach back. And she said, brother, whatever you do, I'm in your corner. You need to understand, she wasn't Mother Rosemarie then. She had some struggles. And if you knew her, there are 3 things you need to know about Rosemarie. You have not been told off unless you've been told off by Rosemarie. You have not been blessed out unless you've been blessed out by Rosemarie. But if push came to shove, you have not been cursed out unless you've been cussed out by Rosemarie. You know, we tend to sanctify our dead, but you can't sanctify this. My sister was a spitfire, but so full of love. You didn't have to wonder what she was thinking. If she liked you, you knew it. But oh, if she didn't like you, you knew that. But when my sister reached back when I started the ministry, she was not who she was up until this day. She had many struggles. And I asked God, I know you told me a church of restoration. And it was one day that Rosemarie and I went to the lakefront. We took some food. And I sat there to minister to her because I knew that I had to do a job as a brother and a young pastor. We got at the lakefront and I learned that God sent me there so she could minister to me. It was there that I learned more about me than I ever knew. Because your siblings, they have a perspective about you that you didn't know. She shared perspective. And I shared perspective. And we prayed. And it was only about a year or two later, she came into the fullness of who she is as Mother Rosemarie Coleman. God used Praise Temple to help mold her into this woman she is. She's always been a leader. She's been president of everything since I was a little boy. And she loved animals. We had cats, dogs, frogs, hamster, and even a monkey. Because my mother could not say no to Rosemarie. She loved her cat, Daniel. I say to our family, keep things in perspective. Because no longer will we have to wonder whose turn it is to attend to her. No longer will we have to find out where is she and who's taking her to the doctors or who's spending the night with her. Because all of that is over. But the blessing is she has lived her life to the fullest. And I thank God for my sister, Rosemarie Coleman.